outside.
Ben's off the list. Let's try the next guy. Who knows? Hey, Nicole.
Yes.
In my box, where's a letter? It's a little old now. June 30th for the audit.
Oh.
Did I do that online or something?
I don't think so. They like a handwritten one. I think they sent it out in the mail.
Okay, Jamie. Did I fill it out? Give it to you?
You.
Oh.
I'm working on a solution for that, by the way.
There's a product you can get.
I just bought the product.
The glowing light.
Good.
All right, we'll call the meeting to order at 5 o'clock. This is the closed session of the Beaumont City Council meeting for Tuesday, July 19th, and we'll start with a roll call, please.
Councilmember Lara?
Here.
Councilmember Santos?
Here.
Councilmember Fenn?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Martinez?
Here.
Mayor White?
Here. And this meeting will be open to the public and conducted in a virtual format to be inclusive of all participation preferences. Public comment participation is encouraged by emailing any comments to the city clerk's office or by calling in using the phone number provided on the front of the agenda. Do we have any public comments?
I have no written comments. Katie, do we have anyone on the line?
No callers on the line.
Okay, so we are going to go into closed session to discuss the following items: conference with labor negotiators pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6, city designated representative, interim city manager Elizabeth Gibbs, and administrative services director Carrie Mendoza, employee organizations SEIU. Number 2 is public employee appointment or employment pursuant to Government Code Section 54957, title city manager. Number 3, conference with labor negotiated pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6, agency designated representative, Mayor Lloyd White. So at this point, we'll go ahead and adjourn into closed session at 5:02. Okay, we are back from closed session, and we'll have a report out of closed session, and right now it's 6:13. Mr. Pinckney.
So the council met in closed session. Item number 1 was conference with labor negotiators pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6. City designated representatives, interim city manager Elizabeth Gibbs. And the agenda item said also Administrative Services Director Carrie Mendoza, but she was not in attendance. The employee organization was the SEIU, and there was reportable action on this item. The council approved a motion to approve a memorandum of understanding between the SEIU and the city for the general unit employees that expires on June 30th, 2026, and the vote was as follows. The first was made by Mayor White, the second by Councilmember Santos, and the vote was Mayor White, yes, Mayor Pro Tem Martinez, yes, Councilmember Santos, yes, Councilmember Fenn, yes, and Councilmember Laura, yes. So that agreement is approved. The second item was public employee appointment employment pursuant to Government Code Section 54957 regarding the city manager, and there was reportable action on that item as well. There was a motion to appoint Elizabeth Gibbs as the city manager and to place a contract on the next open session. And the first was made by Councilmember Laura, the second by Councilmember Fenn, and the vote was Councilmember Laura, yes, Councilmember Fenn, yes, Mayor Pro Tem Martinez, yes, Mayor White, yes, and Councilmember Laura, yes. The third item was conference with labor negotiator pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6, agency designated representative, Mayor Lloyd White. And that was concerning unrepresented employee city manager, but there was no discussion on that item and therefore no action on that item. And that concludes the report out from closed session.
Thank you, Mr. Pinckney. And at this point, we'll go ahead and now call to order the regular session of the City Council meeting for Tuesday, July 19th, and we'll do that at 6:15. We'll start that with a roll call, please.
Councilmember Lara?
Here.
Councilmember Santos?
Here.
Councilmember Fenn?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Martinez?
Here.
Mayor White?
Here. At this point, if you'd all stand, and we'll, Mayor Pro Tem Martinez will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Mayor. Put your hands over your hearts, please. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And do we have any adjustments to the agenda tonight? No? Okay. At this point, we'll move into announcements, recognition, proclamations, and correspondence. And we'll go ahead, start with Doug. Mr. Story, do you have the proclamation for the month? Did I give that to you? Okay, Ashley, you go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry, your name's right here.
That's okay.
My bad.
It's really high. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Since 1985, America has celebrated July as the nation's official Parks and Recreation Month, with the goal of raising awareness for the vital impact that parks, recreation, and conservation have on communities across the United States. To celebrate Parks and Recreation Month, your rec team has been hosting pop-up and storytime events in the park throughout the city. So far, we have held 19 events, which encourage the community to get outside, make new friends, and enjoy their public parks. Tomorrow at Shadow Creek, our friends at the Beaumont Police Department will be hosting a pop-up with us, so we welcome you to stop by between 9 and 11. In addition to these reoccurring events, we're excited to see everyone at our annual Freedom Festival on July 4th. And later this month on the 29th, we look forward to co-hosting the National Night Out Touch a Truck event with our public safety partners and a movie in the park on August 5th. Lastly, we're excited for some upcoming programming at the CRC. Classes include theater camp, denim decorating, Build-A-Buddy stuffed animals, and a ladies' craft night, just to name a few. So this information, along with our recreation guide highlighting our other classes, is available in the back. And now at this point, I'd like to read the proclamation. It says, whereas Parks and Recreation is an integral part of communities throughout this country, including the city of Beaumont. Whereas Parks and Recreation promote health and wellness, improving the physical and mental health of people who live near parks. And whereas Parks and Recreation promotes time spent in nature, which positively impacts mental health by increasing cognitive performance and well-being, and alleviating illness such as depression, attention deficit disorders, and Alzheimer's. And whereas Parks and Recreation encourages physical activities by providing space for popular sports, hiking trails, and other activities designed to promote an active lifestyle. Whereas Parks and Recreation programming and education activities are critical to childhood development, and whereas Parks and Recreation increases a community's economic prosperity through increased property values, expansion of the local tax base, increased tourism, and attraction and retention of businesses, and crime reduction. Whereas Parks and Recreation is fundamental to the environmental well-being of our community, and is essential and adaptable infrastructure that makes communities resilient in the face of natural disasters and climate change. Whereas our parks and natural recreation areas ensure the ecological beauty of our community and provide a place for children and adults to connect with nature and recreate in the outdoors. Whereas the U.S. House of Representatives has designated July as Parks and Recreation Month, and whereas Beaumont recognizes the benefits derived from parks and recreation resources. Now therefore, let it be proclaimed that July is recognized as Parks and Recreation Month in the city of Beaumont. And we gladly appreciate your support, and we hope you enjoy the goodies that we left for you. And I can answer any questions you may have.
Thank you.
I love it. Perfect, thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. We'll let Ray do that for us. Okay, and we have another recognition.
Yes.
Mr. Story.
Absolutely. I am happy to recognize and present a certificate of recognition to the Valdivias. If I could have David Jr. and David Sr. come on up. We have been reporting on multiple occasions coming to council and approving purchases and different things to rehab and put Rangel Park back together. And it's been a great process for us. But like all great processes, we need a partnership in our community. And that partnership came from the Valdivia family, and we greatly appreciate them, not only in helping us rehab the park, but also in helping bring back the tournament. So they did their annual fast pitch Coyote softball tournament last weekend, and it was with great success. Our local Beaumont Coyotes won the tournament on a walk-off home run, right?
Wow.
Walk-off home run, last inning, a lot of fun, a lot of exciting times. But everyone had a great weekend, and that part couldn't have been done without the partnership from our great members of the community. And so the Valdivia family, I want to read this to you. On behalf of the Beaumont City Council, we'd like to recognize the Valdivia family for their contributions to the renovation of Rangel Park and Valdivia Field. With your assistance, the city is honored to once again provide a home for the annual Beaumont Coyote Fast Pitch Softball Tournament. This community event provides an opportunity to highlight Beaumont's historic Barrio Railroad District while keeping local history alive. Thank you from the council.
Thank you.
Thank you, buddy. No problem. Thank you, guys.
If you'd like to say something,
for sure. Absolutely.
My dad doesn't want to talk because his voice is all scratchy. I just want to say a personal thank you from the Valdivias and from the Beaumont Coyotes. I know we pestered you guys a lot with phone calls and stuff, and Doug was getting my phone calls a lot. It was a great success, and we had a lot of people from the community. I think Mike went down there, Doug went down there, and there was streets blocked off. I didn't realize how much people missed it, and we had a lot of people come out and say how beautiful the park was, and it was beautiful, and it was nice to play on, and I just want to say thank you to you guys because we pulled it off. It was close, but we pulled it off. So it was a great community event. Like, people from the Lions Club, they did our trophies, so it was a total community event. So, and Dwayne Burke up there at the Noble Creek letting us use some of his equipment, and it was just a total community event. So thank you guys.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, we'll move on to the public comment period for items that are not on the agenda. Any one person may address the city council on any matter not on this agenda. There's a 3-minute time limit on public comments. There will be no sharing or passing of time to another person. State law prohibits the city council from discussing or taking actions brought up by your comments. This meeting will be open to the public and conducted in a virtual format to be inclusive of all participation preferences. Public comment participation is encouraged by emailing any comments to the city clerk's office or by calling in using the phone number provided on the front of the agenda. Anyone in person wishing to speak can do so by filling out a form at the back of the room and handing it to a staff member. Do we have any public comments?
Mr. Valdivia, did you still want to speak?
No,
Okay, all right, just checking.
We do, but I haven't entered a piece of paper.
Okay, you can, let me just check and see if there's anyone on the phone lines, and then you can come up and give your name. Daniel, do we have anyone on the phone?
We have no callers at this time.
Okay, go ahead, you can just step up and state your name.
Hi, ladies and gentlemen of the council, city staff. My name's Diego Rose. This is my wife, Bianca Figueroa. We're the owners of Marlo's Cocina and Cantina here in town. We received a phone call from the city the other day asking for some information from us because apparently there's been some interest in what's going on with our business. As much as we appreciate that, we have not been able to give much in regards to updates because we don't know much. I thought it would best be suited for everyone if we did it in a public forum, not on social media. And so that's why we're here and present today. Wanted to let everyone know some of our intents in the position that we're in right now. It's probably not where we want to be, probably not what anyone hopefully in the community wants to hear. I'm sure there's some that do, but we are in a position, we will be waiting for 60 days to hear back from our insurance company in regards to damages sustained in our fire. We have, at this point, no knowledge to what kind of reimbursement we will be getting from our insurance company for our business insurance that we were carrying. We were actually in the process of purchasing that property. We were halfway through that purchase lease option. The owner of the facility does not have fire insurance. That is causing an issue in regards to possibilities for a rebuild. We are attempting to work through those issues with the owner of the property. At this point, we are not going to make any decisions on whether to rebuild here in Beaumont or to move our business, which is also an option presented by the insurance company to open at another location. We would prefer not to do that. We love the history of the building. We love the history of all the families that come through. This is a generational thing that has been here in Beaumont, and we feel that. We feel there is a need for this building to remain. So our efforts are to continue in this location, but at this point, we can't really make any of those decisions. After 60 days, we will hear back after all the forensic accounting is done of both our payroll, sales. In regards to the rebuild, we may be coming to the city at a later point in time with information about our plans directly to the city managers, hopefully at that time with some kind of a game plan. But as it stands right now, we don't have a whole lot to offer other than some of our wishes and intentions. So we're more than welcome to take any questions. My phone number, pretty readily available. A lot of people in the community know it. I welcome any phone calls. If anyone has any questions, please reach out to us at any point in time, except through social media. We will not do business through social media. Okay, so that's why we're here, and thank you so much. We appreciate it. We appreciate all the help that we have received from the city. The city, just to let everyone know, was actually there the following day after the fire, the next business day with fire marshals. The building teams were out there. They walked the property with us. They were very informative, and I just want to say thank you as well. City has been nothing but professional, so thank you guys.
Thank you, Diego. I
Yeah.
wish you the best, and I
Yeah.
hope that you do bring back Marlos.
Yeah, we hope to.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. And we have no other public comments at this time?
No, sir.
Okay. So that brings us to the consent calendar. Items on the consent calendar are taken as one action item unless an item is pulled for further discussion. Here are at the end of action items. Approval of all ordinances and resolutions to be read by title only. Are there any items to be pulled from the consent calendar? Mr. Martinez.
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to pull number 9.
Okay. Anyone else? All right, at this point, I'll take a motion for all items except for item 9 on the consent calendar.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve items 3 through 8 and number 10 of the consent calendar.
And could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Lara?
Yes.
Councilmember Santos?
Aye.
Councilmember Fenn?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Martinez?
Yes.
Mayor White?
Yes. So, Mr. Martinez, did you want to, did you have some brief questions or comments, or do you want to take this up at the end of action items? I'll let you decide.
Well, I'd like an update of where the state is on this, and then, because the dates in the report are pretty scattered from 2020 to 2022. So I want a little bit more of a concise breakdown of the report and where our state is at the moment to see whether it's necessary or not to continue. So if you want to do further discussion, that's up to you.
Are you ready to present this item then? Okay, we'll go ahead and do that right now.
So the item that you have before you is to review the local emergency declaration that was established and adopted on March 17th of 2020. And as you know, that's when COVID-19 hit and everything shut down. So City Council approved the resolution, and our governor declared a state of emergency. By adopting that resolution, it empowered me to make several findings. Without that resolution, my hands would have been tied, or are tied, without council having this resolution in force. The most recent executive order, as I understand it, was from February of this year, and there's 11 executive orders related to the pandemic, and those are in the report under Attachment A. 19 provisions have been terminated, and an additional 18 were lifted on March 31st. 15 were set to expire June 30th. As long as this emergency declaration remains in effect, we will continue to bring it back periodically to keep it in force. It is required to be reviewed periodically by City Council. Like I said, as long as this resolution is in effect, we have the ability, I have the ability to do certain things without calling a meeting of City Council. And I don't know if you want me to go through.
Well, no, Ms. Gibb, let me just kind of clarify what my question is. So according to the document, everything should be expired by June 30th.
Correct.
Therefore, are there anything outstanding still that would require us to continue this? And that's the question. Because according to this, everything's gone.
No, and you can certainly terminate this with the understanding that that removes power from me as the city manager to be able to do certain things under that declaration.
Well, the original premise of this was to follow the state. So if the state was still under declaration, then, or the governor's proclamation at least, then we were going to follow that for the various reasons we talked about. So the question is, if the state's still under that, then of course, I'm assuming that, and we can discuss, but I would support staying under it as well for those powers that you've mentioned. My question is, though, as I read this, it looks like many of them are terminated. So the question is, and if you don't have the information, you can come back and I'll gladly approve this now and we can make that for the next item. But I would like to know what's still outstanding for the state. And because I know legislation's been going through some things and talking about that, and there's nothing definitive on that. But if the state's still under declaration, I just want to know what it is that's still pending. Because at some point, you know, we're going to follow the state for many reasons we've already discussed, including your power and so forth. I just want to know, just reading this, a lot of things are terminated.
Right.
So obviously there's stuff that isn't. So if we can do just a report on that next time, that'll help me. And then the next question that goes with this is the teleconferencing related to the emergency declaration? because legislation's trying some things to extend that, and that's been stalled for many reasons. So the question is, if we denounce this declaration, are we gonna lose that ability to have the teleconferencing as well? Because the last time I believe it was yes was the answer. So that's another important factor that will decide on whether we're gonna keep this or not. So that's fine. If we need to come back and have an update, then I'll be willing to.
So why don't I do this? I would recommend that you keep it in force for now. I'll bring it back on August 2nd, and we'll put it under action items and not on consent.
Right, and then at least we have an update. And like I said, if the state's still under declaration, at least we know where it's at, and then we can go from there. I mean, that's a whole nother debate in itself, but I would appreciate that. So if no one has any further questions, I'll make a motion.
No, I do have
You do?
some.
Okay.
Yeah. So you bring up the teleconferencing, and we have decided as a board that we would not do Zoom meetings for our council meetings, and the same thing does not go forward to planning. It does to planning, right? Economic Development Committee.
My understanding is the committees have decided amongst themselves if they want to Zoom in or not, but that's certainly something the council can weigh in on and direct.
Okay, and we will, there's not a problem, probably a question for Mr. Pinckney, there's not a problem with us moving forward on a permanent basis of providing access to the public through public comments through the emails or call-ins and that kind of thing?
You can still allow people to call in comments. Yes.
Regardless of what action we take now or
Yes.
when this comes back?
This item that's before you this evening, that we were discussing, item 9 that was pulled, relates to granting certain powers to the city manager that was implemented when COVID first began. The next item, item 10 on the consent calendar, is the emergency declaration that allows you to have the remote meetings, and you don't have to post the agenda at the location where you're attending from if you're out ill with COVID or family members are. It allows you to call in, the day of a meeting and say, look, I'm going to attend remotely tonight, without having to comply with posting it in the agenda, posting it at your house. So, but the item that we're talking about now is really the emergency declaration that grants certain authority to the city manager without having to call emergency meetings.
So I'm glad you provided that information, because I think what you were talking about is the current legislation that they're going through is item number 10.
It is 9, and yes,
It's
that
number
is correct.
10.
But my concern was if we got rid of the 9 emergency declaration, would we also get rid of the teleconferencing at the same time? Are they tied? That's my question, because the legislation hasn't come through to separate it yet. That was my concern.
Okay, and a motion tonight would be recommended by the council, by the staff, that we take no action. Are you suggesting with your comments that you're okay?
Taking no action.
Taking
at this
action?
moment. No, taking no action in this moment until they come back in
we'll bring
August with a current status.
So you would leave it in place, you would approve it as part of the consent calendar, and we would come back in August and do further.
Okay, and I'm asking you because I am ready to take action.
Yeah, I know.
But if you're not.
I just want to know more, because I don't think we're prepared yet to get the status of the state.
Okay.
That's why I want it.
Okay, so at this point, is there any other comments, discussion? So I'll entertain a motion.
I'll approve on consent item number 9.
Could you clarify just for the minutes that the motion is to take no action?
Yeah, so I'll make a motion to approve consent item number 9 to take no action and keep the existing declaration of emergency resolution in place.
I'll second.
A roll call, please.
Councilmember Lara?
Yes.
Councilmember Santos?
Aye.
Councilmember Fenn?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Martinez?
Yes.
Mayor White?
No. We'll go on to item number 11, which is a July 4th, 2022 fireworks enforcement staff report from Chief DeLeese.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. And so before you, we have an after-action report out on our July 4th, 2022 fireworks, the concert and the enforcement efforts. The Fireworks certainly has been a great concern in this community for the past several years. Of course, again, piggybacking off of item 9 and 10, it really took off after COVID and lockdowns, and people seemed to be expressing themselves how they could through the use of explosive fireworks in those matters. So this council had the foresight to pass a much more aggressive city ordinance. Our past efforts through traditional H&S codes, health and safety codes, fell short. What we found out, it was really a communication issue between us and the district attorney's office. There's certain rules in place where those who are charged have the right to present the best evidence in court. Of course, we don't store explosives in our police facility. We drown them with water. And so there's just some miscommunication. So we didn't get the filings we'd hoped for as a deterrent. So because of that, we used the ordinance that you passed this year for the first time aggressively, as you can see, with 8 officers out at the event, and then another 8 in addition to our swing shifts and our night shift patrol. Of course, they were busy with multiple other calls with parties and the typical, right? And so, but with that, we issued 12 citations. Each of those 12 was the $1,000 fine. As you know, we do progress, so we went for $1,000, and then if we needed to, a $2,500, and then a $5,000. And the good news in that is, of those 12, none needed a second response. So we didn't issue any of the $2,500 citations. Now, hopefully word will spread, word gets out, they see our enforcement actions up to, the week leading up into 4th of July, and so we're hoping to deter it. Might take a couple seasons, but we're pretty confident word will get out. These fines are immediate, they're attached. If you don't pay it, it goes to collections, and so we're confident in that. Overtime costs was nearly $8,800, but we had no injuries or incidents of altercations at our event, and we kept the city safe throughout the evening. And with that, I can answer any questions you may have.
Do we have any public comments on this item?
I have no written requests. Daniel, do we have anyone on the line?
No, we don't have any callers on the line.
So I have a quick question. The second violation is, what's the time period for that? So the first violation was July 4th. When is this, you know what I'm asking?
Sure.
Okay.
I'd say as soon as we round the corner, and if they wanted to try to be clever and fire off another one, that's a second response.
But if they do one this week or next month, is that a second response, or is that back to a first?
That's a great question. So in that case, it would probably be a first. That's something we can consult with the city attorney's office on clearing up that kind of a timeline. Typically, if you have, let's say you have a loud music call on a Friday night, we go and we break it up. 2 weeks later, they play the music really loud. We go back out there to enforce the noise ordinance. That would be another first until we can start building, let's say, a public nuisance case. Generally be a first.
The reason I ask is because the days coming up before July 4th, you get a lot of illegal fireworks, and then the days after, you still get a lot of illegal fireworks, and
I think if there's a congruence in the timeline, great. Now that was July 4th, and now we're at, we're 2 weeks after. So let's say we went tonight, that'd be another first. But you're absolutely right. If we're looking at an enforcement zone on a specific public nuisance, I'm more than comfortable going 1, 2, 3 within a week.
okay, and I think if we didn't put that in an ordinance, that we should reconsider
The time between.
a timeline. I thought we did, so that was my only question. Any other, Mr. Finn?
Yes, Chief, thanks for the report. I do have a question when it comes to notifying the police department. How did it go down for most of these? Was it neighbor calling on neighbor? Was it, somebody had video and so they called the police department, you guys showed up, they showed the video, and what, I guess, I would assume maybe all 12 are different, but was there a general pattern in that?
So the pattern on the 12, I couldn't tell you for sure. But of the 68 calls, they varied between the email system, the alert, so if you wanted to report a public nuisance, a phone call, or 911. Some of them were tough because we seized a lot of the mortar style ones, that they could launch from any, you could hear it from, right? If they go out in Seneca, you could hear it from the police department. We were hearing them all over. And so it's just, it varied how, I could report back if you want to know how we caught the 12. But what we did do, and I'm not sure if I shared this beforehand, but I think that night I spoke to a couple of you, but we put some officers in some unmarked cars and drove around, and we put the drone up as well. And so when the unmarked would drive down the street, if we got a call, let's say we got a call, residents called and said, hey, people are lighting fireworks, we put an unmarked car down the street, found out who they were, and then the marked car came and signed it up. And so that's the level of, seriousness that we believe that we were directed to take. And so we put a lot of resources out there to deter this because it disturbed people's peace, and it really does. Especially they're all illegal in the city of Beaumont, but the ones that are illegal everywhere are really a nuisance.
Thank you. Yeah.
Mr. Martinez.
I just want to thank you, Chief. I heard a little less in our neighborhood than normal, so I was kind of hoping that helped. And I'm glad to see that we are taking proactive on that. I agree with you, though. We need to go back and look at that time frame because, that 4th of July is a big week and two or so we want to make more meat on that. But I just want to thank you that everything went well, no one got injured, and thank you for explaining that a little bit more, so.
You're welcome. And so the next, you'll see us probably employ very similar strategies on December 31st. But I'll work with the city attorney's office. I'm thinking the courts probably have weighed in on this matter on what's an acceptable time frame for a second, third offense, but we can report back out.
Okay. Mr. Laura.
Chief, you and I have spoken about this issue, and around our neighborhood, it was probably just as bad as it was right after the COVID issue. And I know how difficult it is to be able to track, especially the mortar type of fireworks. So I just wanted to say how much I appreciate our police officers and the work that they did. You doubled the number that I had figured that you might get because of how difficult it is to catch folks. So I appreciate the efforts, very pleased with 12. And hopefully this will be a deterrent that will start to decline the use of illegal fireworks in the city of Beaumont. So thank your staff. It was a great job. Appreciate it. Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
That's all I have, Mayor.
Sure. Mr. Santos.
Chief, that was a great job because it's lessened all the, extra fireworks during that period, and I really appreciate that. And I'm glad that, you mentioned New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
December 31st. That would be nice to, contain that too, or totally nothing in there. But overall, great job. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I also agree with everything that's been said. Thank you, Chief. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right. So that's just to receive and file. And, I get it mixed up with different boards that I'm on. We don't vote on receiving files here, do we?
You don't have to with this, it's
Okay.
just a report.
All right, so we'll move on to item number 12. Resolution approving the closing of a purchase and sale agreement for certain land exempt from the Surplus Land Act. Parcel numbers 418-190-004 and 418-190-005 with Orem Capital. And Mr. Warsinski.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Give me 1 second while I bring up an exhibit for you all to hopefully help depict what we'll be presenting for both this item as well as the next item. So for item 12, Council entered into a purchase and sale agreement with Orem Capital for portions of those two APN numbers that you described for the sum of $81,457.20. Upon execution of that agreement, staff initiated work to complete a lot line adjustment to reconfigure those lots that you described into one actual lot. And that lot was approved on your consent calendar as item number 5. That was the lot line adjustment that reconfigures those two lots into one lot. Then we record that instrument, and then we can end up selling that one property to Orem Capital pursuant to the purchase and sale agreement that was approved last August. So as we're nearing the completion of their due diligence period, the reconfiguration of the lots, it dawned on us that we needed authority for someone to be signing the closing docs through the escrow process. So this resolution that's attached to this item simply authorizes the city manager or her designee to take any and all actions to execute any and all documents needed to consummate the transactions contemplated by the purchase and sale agreement, and to, in essence, sign the grant deed, sign the closing docs, close escrow, transfer the grant deed to the buyer, and then allow them to proceed with development of their site. The parcels that I'm talking about are the ones depicted in blue. That would be the final configuration based on the lot line adjustment that was created today. If you can see that white line that runs east-west, that's a portion of that second APN number. You can see how both of those consolidated to one lot. That's what the grant deed will show. So with that, staff does recommend waive the full reading and adopt by title only a resolution of the City Council of the City of Beaumont approving the closing of a purchase sale agreement for certain land exempt for the Surplus Land Act. And that concludes my report, and I can answer any questions. As I said that, this property is declared exempt under the Surplus Land Act, so any of the items related to the next item number 13, do not apply in this instance. Thank you.
Do you mind putting that image back up? Do we have any public comments?
I have no written comments. Daniel, do we have anyone on the line?
We have no callers on the line.
Okay, so parcel numbers 004 and 005 are the red, correct?
004 and 005. If I use the mouse, can you guys see that?
Sure.
Perfect. So 004, I believe, is this one right here with this little foot on it
Okay.
that extends to here. And then 005 is this big lot down here. So the lot line adjustment takes these two parcels and creates a blue one. And then the remaining of that, probably should have highlighted that, I didn't think of that. But basically this rectangle with this quasi-rectangle are one lot, and then the blue one is the another lot.
And this is the sale that went through with what you have numbered as 449 as well, right?
Under a separate transaction with the prior Denny's owner, yes. They're under contract, and I believe they may have closed escrow on 449.
Okay. So that was purchased from the previous owner, 449 was, correct?
Yes.
And so the items the blue is the one that we're actually,
Yes.
okay. So what does the red represent then? I must have missed that.
The red's the
Sorry.
next item.
Okay, got it. All right. Seeing no other questions, I already asked you about public comments, right? Do we have public comments on this?
No public comments.
Okay. So at this point, I will take a motion.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to waive the full reading and adopt by title only a resolution of the City Council of the City of Beaumont, California, approving the closing of a purchase and sale agreement for certain land exempt from Surplus Land Act.
I'll second that.
Councilmember Lara?
Yes.
Councilmember Santos?
Aye.
Councilmember Fenn?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Martinez?
Yes.
Mayor White?
Yes. Item number 13, approving the sale of surplus land, parcel numbers 418-190-007, 418-140-028, 418-140-029, and portions of 418-190-004 and 418-190-005 with Fifth Street Development LLC. And we have a report from Mr. Warsinski.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm going to check one thing real quick because the staff report, the title excluded 006. which is also part of the person's sale agreement, and that is denoted within the document itself. But
Okay.
just for the record, includes 006 in addition to the ones that you had read off. So the city of Beaumont owns those properties. We're going to be selling the blue portions of 004 and 005 to Orem Capital at close of escrow. The city council has approved a resolution declaring all of the red properties surplus land under the Surplus Land Act from the state of California. And they did that on December 7th of 2001. On December 8th, the very next day, the city of Beaumont published a notice of availability in compliance with the Surplus Land Act. And what that does is it complies with the state law that says if municipalities are going to be selling what they've deemed surplus land, you go through a process with Housing and Community Development, that department at the state. And what it does is you send out a notice to all interested affordable housing builders that have expressed interest in these projects. You also send it to every taxing entity and public agency, including parks and recreation at both the city and the county level. So that notice of availability was sent out. During the required 60-day notice period, the city received 0 interest letters from affordable housing developers or those public agencies I described. On May 31st, the city provided a notice of disposition to the State Department of Housing and Community Development. So that's the second stage of the Surplus Land Act process, is when you go through the notice of availability, when you actually intend to dispose of the property, you do a notice of disposition. On a letter dated June 14th, HCD approved the disposition of the properties and permits the sale of those properties in compliance with the Surplus Land Act, and I've attached that letter for your review. The City Council has authorized the city manager to negotiate the sale and lease of these properties to an interested buyer. One fund section in our municipal code does prescribe a process to dispose of real property that the city has owned, and that section is provided in here, and the city complied with that section of the municipal code when we took a prior action on this item back in November of 2019. That process, that declaration by the Planning Commission that the property is zoned for what the intended buyers are purchasing it for still remains true and valid today. It's the same exact item, just a different buyer or purchaser. And if you can remember, back when we did it in 2019, we entered into a purchase and sale agreement with the developer at that time who failed to perform under the terms of our agreement, and we terminated that thus after they failed to perform. So the site analysis is everything depicted in red, which is approximately 2.15 acres of vacant commercial land. The property is zoned community commercial and designated as community commercial in the general plan. And you can see that on the land use map it provided as attachment B, as well as the zoning map attachment C, and an aerial photograph as part of the agenda packet is attachment D. As described above, the duties of the purchasing officer shall include disposition of any real property in a lawful manner. So we do have a potential buyer, which is Fifth Street Development LLC. They desire to purchase, entitle, and develop that property into a retail and service commercial development. Project, at least in our initial discussions, has opportunities to provide for potential for eating establishments, shopping, service outlets for Beaumont residents and travelers passing by on Interstate 10. It has pretty good visibility. This project also has the opportunity or potential to generate sales tax and use tax, which are placed in general fund to help pay for critical city services. The purchase and sale agreement were prepared and presented on completed negotiations between the city manager's office and the buyer. And the deal points contained within that agreement are as follows: a total purchase price for all properties of $1,211,150. We negotiated opening escrow deposit of $65,000 and provided for 180 days investigation, due diligence, if you will, period, under the purchase and sale agreement. And then lastly, allowance of up to 3 30-day extensions to that investigation period, but the buyer does need to pay $5,000 into escrow per extension. The property was appraised back in 2019. Property buyers, or the interested buyers are offering to purchase the property at or above fair market value based on that appraisal. So there's no need to discuss giving out of public funds in this scenario. So the fiscal impact proposed project would generate $1,211,150 in unobligated revenue to the general fund. Staff does estimate that the revenues derived from this property, if developed in accordance with other ones throughout the city, based on our model, would be $30,000 to $40,000 conservatively. If it ends up being a high intense user, it could be higher than that, but conservative estimate around $30,000, which includes revenue from property tax, sales tax, and vehicle license fees in lieu. And staff does recommend that the city council waive the full reading and adopt by title only a resolution of the city council of the city of Beaumont, California, approving the sale of surplus land. What this does is, as you know, the last item provided the city manager authorization to do all the closing items. This resolution does that just now at the onset versus coming back later on. And that resolution also approves the purchase and sale agreement that is attached. And I can answer any questions, and I believe Chris Pito from Fifth Street LLC is on Zoom. He can answer any questions based on anything that the buyer would be able to answer that I may not. Thank you.
Do we have any public comments on this item?
I have no written comments. Daniel, do we have anyone on the line?
We don't have any callers on the line.
Okay, let me start here. So just to sort of set the stage for my question, we normally deal with a lot of, as you know, negotiations through sales by informing the council in closed session. And a lot of the things that we talk about, we address in closed session because we're in the middle of completing or negotiating a deal. I do remember the other one falling through, and White fell through, and I do remember discussion after that and giving direction to the city manager. I don't necessarily remember the details about what the appraisal was and what the difference between the appraisal amount is and what the purchase price is. So I have two, I think, brief questions. Number one, when was the appraisal done?
The appraisal was done in, where is it? It's on here. September of 2019, prior to the first person's sale agreement that we had with the one that fell through.
Okay, and is it all right to ask what that appraisal amount was?
You'll be disclosing that.
Okay,
And I know that that's been disclosed to the buyer.
okay. Has that been disclosed to the buyer?
I believe so.
Okay.
Yes, it has.
Okay. And when was the agreement with the points that you mentioned before brought to the city manager?
The ones contained in this agreement?
Yes.
This is the one that you remember back in October and November of last year. So at the failure of the other buyer, we
Okay.
started getting interested offers, and we brought those offers to city council in closed session. Technically, we couldn't negotiate those offers because we had to comply with the Surplus Land Act. But what we did do was vet those offers to see if the deal points within those offers, the dollar amounts, would be something the city council would be willing to consider once we got to that point in the future. And these deal points were ones that were agreed to at that time.
Okay, but the appraisal was done back for the first purchase, so back
Yes.
in 2019, maybe 2018?
2019.
2019, okay. And one last question. You mentioned in your presentation that what we did in item 12 gave the city manager the approval to deal with item 13. But item 13, the parcel numbers in item 13 were not listed in item 12. So how does that work when item 12 was approved for those parcels?
Understood. I should have stated that a different way. So
Okay.
a similar action is contemplated in this one to do those actions that we did in 12 for this process at the approval of the purchase and sale agreement versus we're not, what I was trying to say is we're not coming back with another resolution at the end of escrow at the last minute to authorize the city manager to sign those closing docs if we get to that point. We could have done this on the other one, but we didn't.
And Mr. Pinckney, is this the proper approach for item 13?
The council can approve it if they wish to, or if you prefer, you can have a closed session so that you can have a, off-the-record conversation, given that it is a negotiation. If that's, you raise that issue of not being in closed session, and if you prefer to have a closed session before approving the contract, you can do that. You can agendize it for the next meeting.
And I'm not sure until I hear from the other council members, but regarding the action we took in item 12, won't we have to take the similar action for these parcels at some point before the close of escrow?
You can approve the purchase and sale agreement and give the city manager authority to take whatever actions are needed to close escrow on the contract.
Okay, I just thought the item 12 was under the agreement for certain land exempt from surplus, I don't know why I can't say that word tonight, surplus
Right.
land act, but I don't.
Well, there was a determination that that parcel was exempt from
Okay.
the Surplus Lands Act.
And these we went
This
through
one
the
is not,
process.
but it's gone through the process
Okay.
required by the Surplus Lands Act, and you've gotten approval to sell it.
Okay, so at this point, I'll open discussions to one of our resident real estate experts, Mr. Finn.
Thank you, and I will make a disclaimer with that most of my experience is with residential, so that leads into my question about the appraisal that was done. We're approaching nearly 3 years, and it's obvious to probably everybody living in the United States that property values have gone up since then. We are now starting to see a decline in real estate. A residential real estate appraisal may cost $500 or $600. I do not know what they cost for a commercial property, but my question is why was not a new appraisal completed?
Sure. And, let me jump in. Mr. Pinckney, do you think this discussion would be better off in closed session?
It's up to you as a council. The question that was presented is why haven't we updated the appraisal? And I think that Mr. Rosinski can answer that question. There's nothing confidential about that. I don't think. But, if that's a concern and you want to talk about getting an updated appraisal and then have that information shared with you, if you do in fact go that direction, that would be something we would do in closed session.
So I'm comfortable moving forward in open session because I know Mr. Pinckney will jump in when we approach an area where we should be in closed session. Are the rest of you okay with moving forward on this in open session?
I'm looking on the more discussions on this on the closed session on this because there's more items need to be discussed on this. I mean, how many square footage and everything, how much per square footage on this, and what's the present value of that property right now?
So,
Just like
let me jump in because I agree with you, and I thought that normally we've done that in the process, and we did this. I'm sure we did a while back, but I agree with you, and I think we should. I would like to make a motion that we move this to a closed session item on the next agenda.
I will second that if everybody accept that.
Do you still want to ask your question?
I'm okay with foregoing the question if the council wants to move it to closed session.
Okay. Everyone good? Let's, I need a second on that motion. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Santos. And can we get a roll call, please?
Councilmember Lara?
Yes.
Councilmember Santos?
Aye.
Councilmember Fenn?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Martinez?
Yes.
Mayor White?
Yes, and who's the gentleman from Fifth Street LLC?
Chris.
Chris, I just want to let you know that we just need to get more information. So, don't read too much into our wanting to discuss this in closed session, please.
Mayor, if I might, could we back up to item number 11? I have an answer to the question. Under the Municipal Code, Chapter 1.16.040, it does outline the timeframe between each offense.
Okay.
And it's day-to-day.
Day-to-day.
And that
Okay.
was included in the March 2022 adoption of the ordinance.
But that could be modified if we wish to bring it
Yes,
back.
is there consensus to bring it back?
It
No?
can't?
Yes, please.
Have to wait a year.
It says each and every day. I apologize.
So just back up a little bit to the 1.16030C. It'll take you to the California Health and Safety Code, which is going to, be a state law. And in that, it speaks specifically to the possession or use of fireworks. And that is what gave you the authority to make the fines, the 1,000, the 2,500, and the 5,000. That also says that you have a year. So meaning the first firework goes off at this particular residence or person, a clock starts of a year. So if the second offense is on day 364, that's the second offense. But it also indicates that every day is a new day. So meaning you fire it July 4th, 1,000, July 5th, 2,500, July 6th, 5,000, and every day from there on up to 1 year is $5,000. Day 366, unless it's a leap year, then it goes back to 1,000. So, I'll forward these and still work with the city attorney's office, but I believe the health and safety code will prevail on this.
So I'm personally good with that as long as our ordinance references that properly? Okay,
Yeah. Okay,
thank you.
you're welcome.
Item 14, agreement with Union Pacific Railroad for construction of new signals and an expanded railroad crossing on Pennsylvania Avenue in an amount not to exceed $1,069,018 and future annual maintenance fees in the amount of $21,550 per year. And staff report from, I guess, Jeff Hard.
Yeah, let me raise those chiefs a little shorter than me.
He didn't hear that.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So this will be the first of 3 items we're getting to Pennsylvania. This item and the next one will be related to the Pennsylvania widening, and the third one would be for the Pennsylvania grade separation. The Pennsylvania widening project is currently being advertised for construction bids. Part of this project includes widening a section that crosses the Union Pacific Railroad right-of-way, which necessitates upgrades to the signals and widening of the existing railroad crossing. UPRR has developed cost estimates for these upgrades, as well as estimates to grant right-of-ways for construction, maintenance, and repair of the expanded right-of-way within the UPRR roadway within the UPRR right-of-way. The agreement outlines the following costs to be paid by the city. There's $173,000 to grant rights to the city to construct, maintain, and repair the roadway. $896,000 for the construction of the signals and the expanded railroad widening surface. $18,000 annually in signal maintenance fees after the project is constructed, and $3,000 per year in annual surface maintenance fees once the project is completed. The grant right fees will be paid to UPR upon the approval of the agreement, while the construction amounts will be paid on a % complete basis during construction. The annual maintenance fees will go into effect after the project is constructed. Within your staff report, there's a project accounting summary of where we sit today. And I am happy to answer any questions you may have. Staff is recommending the City Council approve the agreement with the UP Railroad for the construction of new signals and expanded railroad crossing on Pennsylvania Avenue in an amount not to exceed $1,069,018, as well as maintenance fees in the amount of $21,550 per year. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any public comments on item 14?
I have no written requests. Daniel, do you have anyone on the line?
We don't have any callers on the line.
Okay, we'll start this one with Mr. Lara, please.
Jeff, thanks so much for the report. I have a question on the project accounting summary. I'm hoping you could explain that to me. I'm not following it. So actually, I have a couple questions. When you look at the project accounting summary, project management, we have 22,537. And then paid to date, we have 22,537. So we have project management that we paid on a project that hasn't started yet?
Yeah, this is project management associated with the planning and design for the project.
Okay. And then when you look down at permits, we've got 33,165, yet we're looking at $1 million on this one. Wouldn't this be considered a permit for Union Pacific?
Well, the bulk of this cost will be considered construction. They actually, the railroad will be the ones constructing the improvements within their right-of-way. And so it is a reimbursement for a percentage of constructed as it proceeds. And then there's also some maintenance fees, and there's also some grants fees associated with the allowance to construct these facilities.
So where do these show up on my project accounting summary?
So they don't, and it's a good point. I've had, some discussions with the city manager so far about modifying how we can make this clearer picture of what we have. Previous direction was always that the only items that were added into these budget amounts on the project accounting was actual encumbered amounts. And so since the construction contract and the amounts for this UP agreement have not yet been encumbered or been approved, they have not yet been added. And so at some point, there was the unallocated CIP budget showed that would be allocated once it was actually encumbered. Moving forward, I think what would paint a better picture is we can leave the column as we see showing encumbrances, but add another column that shows the current budget. And we can allocate based on what the estimates were, so we can show a total project, as well as another row that would show you future year CIP funding. So you have what we've approved in prior year plus the current fiscal year. And then we've also got the out years in the 5-year CIP. So I believe we can show that as a better picture that shows what we have now, what we have in the next future years, and then if there's any funding deficiencies or any unfunded amount as well.
Okay, so, and I appreciate that very much. So to that end, that total CIP budget of $4,018,000, that's not actual then, right? Or is
No,
it?
that's the total budget amount we have in the CIP authorized right now, yeah.
Okay.
And so actuals, we're looking at 627 to date.
Okay, so you'll make those adjustments and then that'll come back to us and I'll understand that better, okay. I
Yeah,
appreciate
and
that.
we'll make it a global adjustment, so once we all concur on a format, we'll make it a global, and then all the CIP projects that we have with this project accounting summary will be inclusive of those revisions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hurd.
Council, if I might, you'll have a more clear picture of a budgeted amount for each CIP project and not just the money behind it, if that makes sense. So right now what we're doing is we're taking the revenue that we have and we're applying it to the projects, but what we want to do is apply what the actual budget is and whether or not the revenue is behind it, and if it's not, then we need to look for it.
Thank you. Mr. Martinez.
Kind of an off question, and remind me, we talked about a no-horn zone in this area, and we talked about the necessity to have that. You would have to have the medians and all that stuff. Can you remind me what happened with that?
Yeah, so the improvements you're seeing will be constructed in accordance with what is required for wayside horns. It's just the first step in a long process, and usually there's multiple that would go. So that would go through the PUC, but the improvements that would be required, at least the physical improvements on the ground that would be required to begin that process will be a part of this project. So you'll have dual gates on each side, you'll have the median in the middle. So the surface improvements will be there, but it's still a long process through the Public Utilities Commission in order to go through the quiet zone process.
I just wanted to make sure we didn't spend all this and then say, yeah, we want it, and have to go back and tear them up and put new.
No, but it is a process that has to be begun with the PUC. And so this is really effectively the first stage.
But at least the infrastructure would qualify for that if it was approved down the
Correct.
future. All right, that was my only concern. I don't like doing something, having to dig it up and redo it again, so, okay.
Okay, Mr. Lara?
Thank you. I'm sorry about that. The $173,000 to grant rights to the city to construct and maintain and repair the expanded roadway, to me, that seems like it's an encroachment permit, so to speak. Do they have, I don't think I saw anything that justifies that dollar amount for
Very little. So this is effectively to manage an agreement, not only to get us to construction, but as we move through into the maintenance period of this agreement and kind of in perpetuity. And this is the fee that is associated with that.
Is there any way to get, because I know that whenever we develop a fee, we have to develop a nexus to support that fee, right?
Right, and there's not an estimate in here, so staff has tried to hammer them as on any of the costs we have. The construction costs are not to exceed, so should they come in lower, that will not be encumbered. But discussions we've had on the grants of rights was no wiggle room.
And they can also raise it if they need to, correct?
No,
Did I read
that fee
I thought I
is
read
set,
that in
no.
their agreement.
Not that I don't believe so. I don't have the.
Hang on. Sorry, I didn't have that more.
It's after 6 months, yeah.
Oh, if we haven't executed the agreement.
Okay.
So if we haven't executed the agreement, then they have the right to go back and revise the costs for this. That's not, if, once it's executed, it's, yeah, so if now that we've got the agreements, we've agreed on the costs that are there, if it's not executed within 6 months, then they have a right to go back to revise the costs associated with it.
So, but it's two-pronged, I think, too, and please correct me if I'm wrong. It's 6 months, we have to execute the agreement, and then it's 12 months, we have to start construction, or
Right.
that's also could be a cost increase, correct?
Right.
Okay. And you're
And
sure?
that's why you're seeing this a little bit later, obviously, in the process, because we've had some challenges get this, getting ready and going out to bid. And so obviously, if this agreement is brought forward too soon, then you potentially, put yourselves at risk for a cost adjustment.
Okay, and I understand that Edison's started their work, I'm just concerned that.
Yeah, well, we've
They don't
got
hold
commitments
us up-
from Edison on the distribution components of this project, which is the preponderance of the relocations, scheduled within the next few months. And transmission was a little bit of a taller order, but now they've confirmed on that, so within the same timeline, within a few months.
Okay, I've worked on some other construction projects where there's supply chain issues, and specifically in regards to electrical service panels and equipment. Has Edison indicated anything like that?
No, they've committed to within the next few months.
Okay.
So we
all right.
finally got them to commit to.
Thank you very much.
Some
Appreciate
timeline.
that, Jeff.
So I know we have 3 items on basically this project, and I just don't know which item is the right item to ask this question, so I'll ask it early, and maybe we don't have to expend too much time on the other 2 items. But, so assuming that we approve all the recommended action here, where does this all fit in the timeline? In other words, what more needs to be done to continue to move forward with our timeline? And if you give me a sort of a review of where we are.
Yeah, so this is, for the widening project, this is certainly an appropriate item to do so. So this is one of the remaining items we have. We're out to bid as well. We have, the next item is regarding some processes we need to do in order to obtain the Caltrans permit in order to construct under the Caltrans right-of-way, which is underneath the freeway. Edison has been committed to relocations, and then there's some regulatory permits that are supposed to be obtained within the next 6 to 8 weeks. But we've had some steep challenges with the Corps of Engineers and the timing that they are significantly understaffed, I guess is one way to put it. We've been pushing as hard as we can, but that is on the remaining to-do list as well.
Okay, and item 16, is that what you just discussed?
Yeah, so 16 is a contract amendment for Kinley Orn, who is the engineer of record, to not just for some assistance with the Caltrans right-of-way encroachment process, but regarding there is some design support for bidding support as well in response to requests for information as we go through construction, any clarifications that we need. And there's also an amount or an item for, sorry, I got the wrong here, for, the as-built. So once it's done and completed, then they have to provide as-built of the final project.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Laurie, you're back.
Well, sorry, since you brought up the as-bills, because that was a question I had on another one.
Let me interrupt you for a second.
ahead.
Are you guys comfortable if we address all 3 at once with questions? If that's the case, do we have any public comments on all 3 of these?
I have no written comments for either 3. Daniel, do we have anyone on the line?
We don't have any callers on the line.
And just as a clarification, sorry before you move on, so the third one is regarding the grade separation project. So technically that is a different project. I'm happy to put them all together, but just for clarification.
And is anyone got a problem putting them all together? Okay, so let's go ahead and consider them all at once then, and go ahead, Mr. Lara.
Yeah, just a really quick question on the as-bills. Aren't as-bills, why is that extra? Because I thought as-bills are typically included as a part of the original contract to provide drafting services or engineering services. Why is this different?
Yeah, so these contracts were procured, prior to my being here, so they were picked apart a little bit. But typically, they're excluded from any construction, post-construction support, as-built support, or routinely excluded from the design engineering component of it. I think changes may arise. I think it's harder to grasp what the level of effort will be for some of the support as well as the as-built. So it's certainly, I have seen it as well, where as-bills are part, it's all wrapped into one, and it's from cradle to grave essentially. But it's not uncommon to see the as-bills deferred to an additional task order or a contract amendment as you get closer to the bidding time.
Thank you for that clarification. That's all I have, Mayor. I promise.
You can come back. Mr. Martinez.
Yeah, so I'm talking about 16, since we're doing them all the same. That's the IDC contract there for design. So when IDC does the design, I'm assuming they're collaborating with the railroad and Caltrans and so forth, so that each one of those entities that have a concern or requirements are put into that. And therefore, when we see a design, we can assume that everything was vetted with everyone involved?
Yeah, absolutely. So that'll be one of the first steps if we pick this back up, will be coordination with Caltrans, and obviously the railroad will be the initial, but they will run fairly concurrently with each other.
Okay, because I remember us having issues with both entities with additional studies and, proximity with Highland Springs and all these things that were coming up at that point. So IDC would now take over and have those discussions as they make their design.
Right, and staff would be a part of that for sure. I think some of the proximities you're referencing are related to the interchange project, which is, we're trying to wrap up some additional analysis to potentially bring that back for an update as well. So it does have some sort of impact on how we proceed with this on a proximity perspective. But yeah, IDC will do the project coordination with not only, UP, Caltrans, but the same entities we're seeing now, resource agencies if necessary, as well as Edison, and any communication relocations.
And I assume we'll have some updates as that process goes along, as we run into bumps and so forth along the way. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Seeing no other comments or questions from council, I would like to make a motion that we approve items 14, 15, and 16 as the recommended action for each item.
I'll second.
And roll call, please.
Councilmember Lara?
Yes.
Councilmember Santos?
Aye.
Councilmember Fenn?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Martinez?
Yes.
Mayor White?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Hart. Item 17, approval of agreement with Intrinsic LLC for body-worn camera services and upgrade. And Chief Delis.
See if I can reach
You wanna
this.
move it?
Yeah, if I can reach this. Good evening, Mayor and Council. And so before you is the proposal for a 4-year extension of the original agreement. Since 2015, the Beaumont Police Department has issued body-worn cameras. In that time between 2015 and 2018, we had relied on variation of body-worn cameras as we went through our trial. We put great effort into selecting who we thought would be the best provider for our needs. In March 28, 2018, City Council approved our original agreement with Intrinsic LLC for our body-worn cameras. I'm aware your report says 2015. It's actually 2018. That was an error that I didn't catch before I submitted this. So to clear that up. And so we've had great success with Intrinsic. It's easy to use. It has what we call an easy button. It's a one-button push to begin recording. It has not failed us. It's held up through our extreme weather of heat and cold and rain. It's very durable. We have a great agreement with this system with the district attorney's office where we can send them or the public defender's office or city attorney's office any videos they need in defense of the city or in prosecution of defense of the alleged suspects. This agreement has been completed. Again, I recognize in the narrative it says we're midway. Sometimes we begin writing reports, and by the time we get around to submitting them, it's months later in the making. And so we have completed our first 4-year contract with Intrinsic. This is an entirely new contract. And so what Intrinsic is doing for us is we currently have 50 cameras. They're replacing not only all 50, we're also acquiring an additional 20 as our growth, and putting CSOs out. We expect all people in uniform that are making contact with the public to have body-worn cameras. So we'll have 70 of the latest technologically advanced cameras. The great thing about these cameras, because they're assigned to a very specific employee or to one employee, when they dock it, it not only charges the camera, but it offloads all the data, and it's assigned to that officer. And again, it's protected. The officer cannot delete videos. They cannot change videos. I'm not sure any of that would want to. These cameras have proven every time to be in their defense. Our officers are out there doing hard work ethically and morally correct. And so when there are allegations of misconduct or improper use of force, we've proven those to be false each and every time through the video. And so before you, we are requesting that we continue to contract with Intrinsic LLC. All of our data is stored in the cloud with their system, free storage for us, or it's part of the maintenance contract. We don't pay additional in that sense. And so the cost has increased annually by about $14,000, but again, that's 20 additional cameras than we currently utilize, and it's a better piece of equipment. And so this 4-year contract is for $170,000, excuse me, $170,813.45, or annually $42,703 for the breakdown. And with that, that's our recommendation for you to approve that, and I can answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Chief. Do we have any public comments?
I have no written comments. Daniel, do we have anyone on the line?
We don't have any callers on the line.
Okay. Mr. Martinez?
And just real quickly, Chief, you've already alluded to the answer, but how would you say the POA's attitude is towards these? Positive, indifferent,
Yeah.
supportive?
Interesting enough, I've spoke on this before, so probably going back in time to about 2016, 17, we were still in that trial phase. And, the POA is part of our selection process, whether it be our CAD RMS, our weapons platform, our vehicles. They have input in this new building that we're going to come before you on. They're the end user, so their opinion matters greatly. But I remember the POA board coming to me and saying, Chief, we need to make a decision. We want cameras. And I mean, certainly it's refreshing, but it just tells you where their mindset is they're confident and comfortable with what they're doing out there, and they want to be protected. And so now with our growth, there's not many police officers that have been onboarded without this technology. Just a couple of us dinosaurs left out there.
Thank you, Chief. I appreciate it.
Mr. Finn?
Yes, Chief, quick question about the use of the cameras. Is it officer discretion on when to turn it on, or is there a procedure in place that anytime they engage the public, they're to turn it on? Like,
Yeah.
for example, traffic stop and so forth.
Yeah, so there is policy in place. It's not any time they engage the public, because many of the contacts would be like at our national night out or at the 4th of July event. They're walking, they're just doing event security. That would be a lot of data that we're taking on in the battery life. It's any call for service, and then anytime there's suspect contact, or traffic offenders are not suspects, but traffic stops, pet checks. If you're taking a uniform presence and action, then you'll record. But there's times that we would not record perhaps a sexual assault victim. The detective wouldn't, right? So it's a uniform presence that the police officer's taking those actions, but not any time.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Mr. Lara?
Chief, you answered a couple of questions that I had regarding the timeframe. So this contract is complete.
Yes.
This is going to be a brand-new contract, and does our policy cover that? Because typically what I see is, we finish a contract, we have the option for a one-year extension. And then at the end of that 1 year, we have an opportunity for a second one-year extension. This is a brand-new contract without going out to bid, so I just want to make sure that we're within policy is all.
So when I looked at 3.01040, it talks about our bidding requirements for maintenance and general services. This is within the cost. That's between $45,000 and $175,000. This is a 4-year for $170,000. We felt we were good in there. Then we looked at 3.01090 and the informal bidding procedure for non-public projects. And what we looked at is, are these services available only from a single source? Is there some sort of an exigency or emergency? And so when I looked at 4 years of our data in the cloud and all the, I think we put it in here, the 132,090 uploads of video, we did not want to go to a different provider in that sense. So we wanted the sole source because Intrinsic holds all of our data, all of our videos, all of our contacts, if you will. And so in that case, we'd be supporting two systems. We'd have to have a maintenance contract with Intrinsic to hold our videos. And then let's say we went with Axon, we'd have to provide or pay for data storage with them or WatchGuard or whichever company we'd have to go with. And so we used the informal and wanted to contract with them and upgrade our current stock.
Okay, so as long as we're covered, but then the concern that you just brought up is, then it seems like we're locked into these folks forever?
Well, and I'm not sure if that would be the case. It would, so what would happen, let's say we found that Intrinsic, just like we did with our CAD RMS.
Right.
We said, well, we need to go a different direction. And so we just pay a migration. We can always pay a migration charge. And so I paid the migration charge when we left one CAD RMS provider and went with this new one. And so we just have to budget for that and determine if Intrinsic, let's say they go out of business or they can no longer meet our needs, our growth, we'd have to probably pay for this migration for them to absorb all of our data, and whichever company is going to do that.
Okay, thank you for that clarification, Chief.
You're welcome.
Okay. See no other questions or comments from council. I'll take a motion on it.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the 4-year agreement between the City of Beaumont and Intrinsic LLC for body-worn camera services and upgrade in the total amount of $170,813.45.
I'll second.
A roll call, please.
Councilmember Lara?
Yes.
Councilmember Santos?
Aye.
Councilmember Fenn?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Martinez?
Yes.
Mayor White?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Item 18, approve the purchase of Han Accelerate workstations in the amount not to exceed $169,683.29 from Blue Space Interiors and authorize the city manager to sign change orders in the amount of $8,485 for a total amount not to exceed $178,168.29. And we'll have a report from Doug Story. Did I say something funny? No. Okay.
There you go. Yeah, I had to bring this way down. Thank you, Jeff and Sean. I appreciate that greatly. I'll start wearing bigger shoes. So back in September of 2021, we came before council and we were doing some renovations and changing some of our layout here in terms of where staff were sitting and some of the areas that we needed to spread people out for as far as workstations were concerned. So we came and we asked to go with Han Accelerate workstations at that time to go with them for our project. We do have some new renovations that are coming here at the City Hall as we prepare for some of the work that's going to be happening here in our East Wing, just across the hallway. We needed to move all of the individuals that were working in these offices back over to our West Wing so that we can put them in a work area while that construction is going to end up happening. It also offered an opportunity for us to bring our CSCs, our front counter staff, back over to the west side of our building, which is, I think has been a really great thing for the city and our community. We're also working on, we have some new staff that are being hired, and our Building D, which is our transit building, some of our IT staff, we have some growing over there in the budget that was previously approved here at council just last month. We did have the addition of 23 positions. And so with those growing pains come, where do we sit these people? And so this is where we come to you today. We're asking for us to accommodate some of those changes. Also, we have Building C, which is previously talked about with the chief. We're going to have some of our PD personnel moved over there once we do some renovations and we conduct some improvements to that building. We'll be moving them in there as well. So each of those areas are going to need some new cubicles for our staff. And so that's what we have here before you today. The total amount, including the amount authorizing the city manager for change orders, is $178,168.29. And again, that is going to be for 3 of our buildings and multiple workstations that we have. I can answer any questions that you have in regards to the layout or where people are going, or any of the questions about our furniture that we're going to purchase.
Do we have any public comments on this item?
I have no written comments. Daniel, do we have anyone on the line?
We do not have anybody on the line.
Okay. Seeing there's no comments or questions from council, I'd like to go ahead and make a motion to approve the purchase of HON Accelerate workstations, the amount not to exceed $169,683.29 from Blue Space Interiors, and authorize the city manager to sign the change orders in the amount of $8,485 for a total amount not to exceed $178,168.29.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Lara?
Yes.
Councilmember Santos?
Yes.
Councilmember Fenn?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Martinez?
Yes.
Mayor White?
Yes. Moving on to item 19. Approve a purchase order in the amount not to exceed $45,860 for Bray Electric Incorporated doing DBA MBE construction for electrical maintenance at Stuart Park, and ratify a maintenance agreement to Bray Electric Incorporated DBA MBE construction in the amount of $45,860. Staff report, Mr. Story.
Back in May 4th of 2021, we came before council and we were given the direction to demo the pool. When we did demo the pool, that affected the electrical feed that was coming into Stuart Park. At the time, we removed the pool and we removed the building next to the pool where the lockers and the restrooms and everything were. And when we did that, that disconnected the park essentially from power. So as we prepared to figure out what the plan was for Stuart Park, there was some time in limbo where we needed to eventually hook up the electrical services to Stuart Park. We came to, staff was given the direction to get electrical services put there in order for the Cherry Festival to be able to operate at the Stuart Park again. So that's what we were able to do. We began to have electricians come out and offer their services and get some quotes from them. In doing that, we discovered that there were some issues when we did the demolition and some stuff that was left over that we needed to take care of pretty immediately before we could have the Cherry Festival and have people out there walking around in that area. So we had Embray, who's one of our electrical services that we've gone with in the past, and we have an agreement with them to cover maintenance services and emergency services for us. We offered them to come in to begin those repairs immediately and to maintain those lines, get them back into a condition so that Edison could come out and then re-hook up power to the park. And we were able to successfully do that. We offered electrical services for the Cherry Festival. And right now, because we have electricity put back in there, we're able to reopen the restrooms over at Stuart Park. So this is something that we were working on over at Stuart Park. Right now, our recommended action is to approve that purchase order with Embray and then to ratify a maintenance services agreement with them for a total of $45,860 for the electrical maintenance services at Stuart Park. if you have any questions, please let me know.
Do we have any public comments on this one?
I have no written comments. Daniel, do we have anyone on the line?
We don't have any callers on the line.
Okay, so Mr. Story, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
That is somewhat related to this item, but it gives me the opportunity to ask this question. And that is, so we, as you said in your report, decided to demo the pool at Stuart Park.
Yes.
I'm hearing from a number of people throughout the community that they're under the assumption that we have decided already not to have a splash park at Stuart Park.
Sure.
And I know that's not true.
Sure.
So I just want to use this opportunity
Absolutely.
to verify that for the public, that we haven't made a decision not to have a
No, we have
splash
not.
park at Stuart Park. Is that correct?
That is correct. In fact, now is a great time for the public to chime in because we are conducting a public survey right now for the Stuart Park project.
Okay.
And that survey is open. We started that survey a couple of days before July 4th. You guys will be receiving, actually at our next meeting, we'll have an update for you. That survey closes on July 27th. And in that survey is an opportunity for any community member to chime in and say, what are things you would love to see at Stuart Park? What are things that you would not like to see? What are things you miss about it? What does your dream park look like? And it's been a great opportunity. We've had some amazing responses. We've got over 500 right now responses. So we've been really excited about the excitement and just the overall tone of the surveys. I'm really excited to bring that back to you next week. But in that, we ask about the splash park and we ask about things that you would like to see. And so those decisions haven't been made, and we're conducting all this information, gathering all this information and intel from our community right now. And we'll be presenting that to you, and then also our design team, design firm, which is PlaceWorks. They'll be taking that information and then coming back with a concept plan. And so that concept plan has changed. When we restarted this whole Stuart Park process, we hit that reset button on a lot of things. And I think that's a great opportunity for the public to chime in. If you go to our website, you can find that also on our Facebook page, Instagram page for Parks and Rec or for the City of Beaumont. I know we've advertised it a ton. There's a QR code. You can scan it, all those fun technical things that you can do. But we would love everyone to chime in. We also sent out letters to the surrounding community and neighborhood around the park so that they could chime in as well. And I had about 10 staff members walking around at the 4th of July collecting surveys from people as well. So I'm excited to bring that to you guys next council meeting.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Lara?
Yeah, just real quick, Mayor, when we had first discussed this and we had gone out to bid on a design firm, you had appointed me as a liaison. I didn't know if that was still necessary at this point, or if you just wanted to have them bring it back, or if you want me to meet with them before they bring it back to council. I'm flexible and open for either or.
No, I'm good with going forward with what we had planned. Everyone else good with that? Okay. Okay. Seeing no other questions, I will move to approve a purchase order for amount not to exceed $45,860 for Bray. For Bray Electric, for electrical maintenance at Stuart Park, and approve the ratification of a maintenance service agreement for a total amount of $45,860 for electrical maintenance at Stuart Park.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Lara?
Yes.
Councilmember Santos?
Aye.
Councilmember Fenn?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Martinez?
Yes.
Mayor White?
Yes. Item 20, Mr. Pinckney.
And I'll be recusing myself on this item because it involves my law firm.
So item 20 is the approval of city attorney invoices for the month of June 2022. And do we have any public comments on this item?
I have no written comments. Daniel, do we have anyone on the line?
We don't have anybody on the line.
Okay, at this point, if there's any discussion, I'll take a motion from somebody, please.
Mayor, I'll approve item number 20, the invoices in the amount of $81,355.64.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Lara?
Yes.
Councilmember Santos?
Aye.
Councilmember Fenn,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Martinez.
Yes.
Mayor White.
Yes. Next is legislative updates and discussion.
Hi, good evening, Mayor and Council. I have something just briefly for you this evening, and then the chief also has a legislative update for you. The state legislature is currently in recess, and they will be resuming August 1st. We have been, staff has been participating with the League of California Cities, legislative briefings, as well as some subcommittees specific to different departments and legislative issues, and have a number of bills that we're just continuing to watch to see what happens in the last 30 days, which would be for the month of August, to see what ends up making it through and what does not. Earlier, we were speaking about the Brown Act and the teleconferencing and whatnot, bills that came up in our discussion on the emergency reso. And so I wanted to let you all know there are 28 bills this session in the legislature dealing with teleconferencing. There are 2 or 3 that would pertain specifically to council meetings and meetings like ours here. Those are currently stalled. I won't say stalled. They were in committee and the hearings were postponed. So we'll be looking to see if those hearings are rescheduled starting August 1st. And if they end up making it out of the legislative session and what happens there. That's it for me this evening. I'll turn it over to the chief to provide you with his update.
Okay, just a few things here. I wanted to start in light of Uvalde. This might not be legislative, but I think it fits. I wanted to inform council on 2 different dates, one being tomorrow and the other being the 28th of July. We'll have our active shooter training. Tomorrow will be at the Mountain View Middle School from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. If you'd like to come out, I can walk you in and get you in there. If you'd like to come see it, we're partnering with the Riverside Sheriff's Department, the Banning Police Department will have their SRO out there observing. We invited CHP, CAL FIRE. I'm not sure if they're going to be in attendance at this time. AMR. Of course, we'll have our BUSD staff. We're going to get half of our folks and many of theirs tomorrow, and then a great deal on the 28th. And so at 0700, we'll put out a warning to the public because we will be doing the seminitions, the role players, making it as real as we can. This is something that's been ongoing that we've been doing. Of course, COVID created a pause, but not on our side. We're always training and looking at best practices. So I wanted to make you aware of that. So just reach out if you'd like to get up there, because we will have safety officers that are not going to allow people up there because of the seminitions. And so even many of my folks, you don't get to bring a live weapon into a training scenario such as that. So we have armed safety officers. Our officers will make sure people don't get in or out, if that makes sense, just for safety. The second piece of information is good news from the County of Riverside. The Board of Supervisors approved the RIDE program, Riverside Inmate Destination Endeavor, or RIDE. And what that does, they had a pilot program out of the Coy-Bird Detention Center in Southwest. And so when an inmate is released, they're free. They cannot be mandated to have a ride, or they can't be released pending transportation. So what was happening out of the Smith Correctional Facility is they were being dropped off at the closest transportation, public transportation center, or facility, which would be our bus stop there in front of Food for Less. And that was causing us some concerns and some minor issues. But mostly we always think, well, if you get arrested on one end of the county and you need to get a ride back, you may steal a car to get it, right? You're not going to walk in this heat or in some of our other extreme weather. And so we've been advocating for that, and I've worked with the undersheriff and the sheriff on this program because the great concern with them dropping folks off in front of Food for Less. And so the Board of Supervisors did approve that. And so what that does is say they will get a taxi or some sort of transportation voucher to their last residence of record, meaning so they couldn't say, hey, take me to Sundance North and get dropped off and then burglarized or steal a car. It's, your last residence was, let's say it's Menifee, then the taxi will take you to Menifee. And so, and that's the great news, is because we don't want just local rides, we want them to get back to where they have support and care and not harm our residents to get there. And so, finally, just to update on a few bills. A couple are still active, and we're working hard with the legislature on this. As Ms. Taylor said, they are in recess until through the 31st. But we talked about AB 2644, and this was the custodial interrogation bill, which would not let us use manipulative interrogation tactics of persons 25 years of age or younger. Like I mentioned, one of those tactics was just saying, hey, why did Joe say they saw you there? So 25-year-olds these are fully developed people. The legislator's saying, well, they're not developed enough to know that you can't harshly interrogate them. And I don't even like using that term because there's already a law saying you can't use these techniques on persons under the age of 18. But as we talked about, 18 to 25 is the same age. That's the age of our most violent offenders. That's the primary age of most gang members. And so we are still working hard, calling our state senators and our assembly members as chiefs to get them to not support this. So I won't go too far into it just because as I have to be careful as an appointed official on where I lean on bills, but
That was AB 264?
This is AB 2644 by Holden.
Okay.
We do have some good news on AB 937 Carrillo. That is now inactive, and that was going to provide sanctuary state status for all violent felons based on their immigration status. So if they were being released for violent crime, then CDCR cannot work with any federal agency to remove them from this country. We beat that bill back, thankfully. And part of that is I think we're seeing a little bit of a shift in where people where our electeds at the state level want to go on public safety. So we're seeing the needle move a little bit more. And SB 1000, this is still one of our primary concerns, radio encryption. We've gotten some movement on that. It's still active. But they're working with us. There might be an online option where if we make it so somebody can listen to it on the computer, then, so instead of saying, hey, here's our de-encrypting our radio so everybody can hear. So we're working. Hopefully this one moves. Of course, you may have heard about SB 505. I don't have a great concern, but some of your constituents may. This is the firearms liability insurance. So if you're a firearm owner, you'd have to carry personal liability insurance. Again, I look at the ones that really warrant my time as the chief and have a greater public safety concern as a whole before I involve myself. But that one may be concerned to you all as residents reach out to you. Bradford, SB 1038, really good job on this one. This was going to be that permanent facial recognition software ban. We talked about the 1-year hiatus that we worked through. And so, as I mentioned to this council, I do not use this technology at this time. But as our transportation grows and whether we ever have a train station or a major retail complex of a mall or something like that, then we may consider it. We'd of course come back to council, but we didn't want there to be a permanent ban in the state. Some great news on SB 1389, the low-level traffic offenses. That's been ordered inactive. That would have prohibited us from making low-level traffic stops. Keep in mind, Timothy McVeigh was captured by a state trooper from Oklahoma just making a low-level traffic offense. And of course, he bombed the Oklahoma Federal Building. All types of, we provided many instances where low-level traffic stops led to the rescue of human trafficking victims and other type of heinous crimes. Of course, with this United States Supreme Court making a ruling on CCWs, the legislature is looking at SB 918, that's CCW regulations. And so what that would do is create an age restriction of 21, require gun storage and training requirements, a minimum of 16 hours of training. Also indicate that you cannot carry more than 2 firearms at any given time in public. Designate sensitive places such as college, school, university grounds, that's already a law. Government and judicial buildings, medical facilities, public transportation, any place where alcohol is consumed, or special events that require a permit, such as demonstrations. And so we can see probably why, and you can look at those events and figure out why in those cases. So in summary, we've had great success advocating and working very hard collaboratively up and down the state through Cal Chiefs and as individual chiefs with our state electeds. We've beaten back a lot of this, but we still got a lot of work to do, for the general public. And so with that, I can answer any questions you may have.
Seeing no questions, I have a comment. Good job on AB 937.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. So at this point, I think we're good.
Okay, great.
And we'll move on to economic development update.
No economic development committee update this evening. The committee was dark in July and will be resuming in August.
Okay. And the economic development update. I just said that, sorry. I was thinking okay, oh no, this is what I was looking at, city treasurer report, Mr. Giamatti.
Mayor and City Council, ditto what Christine just said. We were dark for the month, and we'll be back next month.
Okay, thank you. City clerk report.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. No report tonight. Thank you.
City attorney report.
Nothing this evening.
City manager report.
Well, I'm going to be the oddball. I just have a few announcements. In your packet is a transportation projects at a glance. That is all of the major transportation projects that we're working on. We're using it as a marketing tool to get the message out to the public on where we're at. These large infrastructure projects are very confusing, take a long time, and we want to make sure that we have the latest and greatest information out there. Also in the packet is your department project schedule updates for June 22nd. I do have a couple announcements. The fire station bid closed yesterday. We had 7 respondents, and so we're working on vetting those right now, and we will bring that back to you hopefully August 2nd. National Night Out, I think we talked about that, is July 29th at the Park District. We're very excited about that. That is a joint event between the Park District and the city. Doug mentioned the Stuart Park surveys are out. He mentioned that they'd be back at the next meeting, but we need a little bit more time, so more than likely those will come back on August 16th, not August 2nd. We want to go through all of those surveys. The next meeting, just to highlight real quick, we're going to have the Veely Avenue update that council had asked us to bring back to you. We will also hopefully have the fire station contract award, and then we'll also have an update on the Memorial Plaza project from the committee members. And then lastly, I would like to announce that our deputy city manager will be representing Beaumont next Tuesday, July 22nd at 1 p.m. on a SCAG panel with one other city of Los Angeles.
Wow.
And she will be talking about innovative parking solutions, and it is a free event. You can go online and register. We're very proud of her to represent one of 2 cities in Southern California. So that's all I have tonight, sir.
Congratulations. Okay, future agenda items. Anybody have future agenda items? So I have 2. At the Beaumont Chamber Breakfast last Friday, we had a presentation by a gentleman who develops and markets gunshot wound kits. Are you familiar with those? He indicated that we have those in the city of Beaumont. Do you mind coming up here? You need to lose some weight, Chief.
I do. Thank you, sir.
So I just wanted to know, we do have those or something similar to that?
I'm not sure what this gentleman had, but we do issue first aid kits, gunshot wound kits, Israeli bandage kits to all of our sworn members.
Okay, because he had referenced that the Beaumont PD
It's
was
Larry
one of the
Townsend. Larry.
I'm not, but I don't know what product he has. I just know my staff handles that, and we carry multiple kits. We carry ones that they carry in their vest. You could slap on. It coagulates, stops as much.
I
and
think
then-
it's the
Yeah, we certainly have, after 2016, we discovered after the incident that we didn't have kits in every single car. Fortunately, we had one that day, and we, of course, tried life-saving measures on that individual. But we carry them for ourselves and, of course, the public as well. So,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
So he made a good argument that I think we should consider possible training and supply for city staff citywide.
Do you want us to bring that back as an item?
As a
Okay.
discussion, as
Okay.
a agenda item.
Okay.
And if that means bring the gentleman in for a presentation, I would recommend that.
I have his contact information. He's spoken to many Rotary clubs.
Okay. And then the other thing is, so a little bit of my council report, outstanding 4th of July event, Doug. And equally, I think it was a big success, the music event and the stage, and I think it worked really well, not only at 4th of July, but I think it worked really well in the Cherry Festival. And I would like to bring back an agenda item to consider a summer concert series. And that's all I have for agenda items. And at this point, we'll move on to council reports. And since I'm on a roll, I'll just go first. Again, 4th of July event, outstanding. RCTC, we passed or approved the first environmental phase or stage of the Coachella Valley San Gorgonio Pass Rail Corridor service, which means the project as a whole, the entire project had an ERI and an EIS, EIS, which means it's been approved, the environmental study, and so the next stage is along the process. By the way, the RCTC voted to consider or to continue looking at this project as all the way to Coachella. There were other options that would go just to Indio or just to Palm Springs. But we're still going to proceed as if we're going all the way to Coachella. The next step is, I think what they refer to as the project ERIs for different pieces of the project along the way. So like stations, crossings, things like that. So there is some confusion in the community that the stations have already been determined where they're going to be. They have not, but because we're moving forward at this point of a third rail, meaning that they're going to have to build a rail the entire length. Personally, I doubt this will be completed in my lifetime, but I just wanted to let people know and let the staff know that they're going to be considering issues like grade separations, things like that along the route. And we've given the approval to move forward with the second phase of the environmental, which is the project environmentals. And that, one last thing, I would like to congratulate our new city manager, Elizabeth Gibbs, and looking forward to continue working with you. And now we'll move to Mr. Santos. Keep you on your toes here.
I know. I'd just like to echo, our mayor here on the 4th of July. That was put together really good. I mean, Christina Taylor, great job. And Ashley over there, and Doug. Doug, excellent. Tirelessly, you put it together and getting organized and everything, well controlled. I really appreciate that. And then, I attended the Cal series. I mean, the leagues. They said hi to you guys. They miss you. So, other than that, nothing to report. Thank you, Mayor.
And Mr. Lara.
Thank you, Mayor. On Saturday, I attended a chamber ribbon cutting, Little Wishes, Big Hearts. It was a backpack giveaway. Went very well. Looked like it was well attended. I do want to thank the showing of police officers that we had there, as well as Ms. Taylor attending, as well as and Mr. Story. Could have been a little cooler, but it was a nice event. And the CEO is very nice and excited to be in Beaumont. Also wanted to thank Mr. Story for the efforts put forth on Rangel Park and not blocking my calls. I appreciate that very much. I want to thank the contractors that helped you, spent a lot of time there. Also want to give special thanks to Mr. Kevin Norville, Robert Sevis, Doug Randa, Richard, I can't even read my own writing. Condi? Mark Bastilli and Shane Scheike. I appreciate their efforts as well. I had stopped by there multiple times just to watch progress. Turned out to be a beautiful park. So good job all the way around, and thanks for meeting the deadlines and, again, taking my calls. And we had a lot of interest in that, as you know. So thank you for that. Thanks, staff. That's all I have, Mayor.
And let me just add, I drove down there and drove around there. I wanted to go there, but there was no parking. Couldn't find any parking there. It was too hot to park and walk 2 blocks. So. Mr. Finn.
Yes, thanks, Mayor. On January 7th, I participated in the Transportation Now Committee meeting. We had asked Beaumont City staff to give a presentation on traffic impact studies, and Mr. Hart did a good job on that. And went into details and helped explain the other agencies and so forth what information is needed and so forth and what goes into it, even down to the minutia of looking at 100 peak hours generated in terms of traffic at an intersection and all that. And the biggest takeaway from that is reminding the public when a project comes in and there's traffic mitigation that needs to be done, it's always done on a fair share basis. And I know that we can all get frustrated where we see a new project come in, it adds to the traffic problem. Well, their responsibility, again, for just their fair share. So what's nice about that is we're trying to work on a collaborative effort with transportation agencies in the area and so forth to try to raise the flag a little higher on the need for a traffic solution in our area. Thanks.
And Mayor Pro Tem Martinez.
Thanks, Mayor. So I attended a few Zoom meetings as the part of the 2x2 Water Ad Hoc Committee with Mayor White. We talked with the San Gregorio Passaic Water Agency, Beaumont Cherry Valley Water District, and staff. We also had a tour of the water plant. The ad hoc committee members from the San Gregorio Pass Agency and their director was there, and they were very impressed with the facility. And I compared it to the last time I went, and I can see wonderful progress that we've made. And it's a very proud facility to have, so I thank everyone for their part in that. I've got a couple of meetings coming up with the Land Use Mitigation Ad Hoc Committee this week, so I'll report on that on the next council meeting. And I do want to comment on this transportation projects at a glance. It's an outstanding piece, and I really like the way that the stages are spelled out there on the side. It really helps with the public to understand more, and it's easier for us to explain, what stage we're at, and it makes more sense this way. So thank you for that. Very well done. And that's it.
Okay. At that, we'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting at 8:12. You won $1, but no one bet you.
I know. Thanks for not.
Thanks for nothing.